Welcome back to the Off Cycle. Today I want to work on getting this tank secured in the boat. I am going to be using some foam. It's not going to be fully foamed in like it was from the factory that caused a lot of the issues. Granted, it did last 24 years or whatever. Well, less than that. I think that tank's been pretty bad off for a while now, but it lasted at least 15 plus years. So I am going to be foaming this tank in. It's not going to be fully foamed in like it was from the factory, as well as the bulkheads and stuff forward and aft of the tank have been redesigned to allow for much more water flow. As you may have seen in the last video, I set the tank on some rubber perforated mats to allow water flow underneath it, so the tank is not going to be sitting on any foam whatsoever. And that mat that I set it on is a lot thinner than the original foam it was sitting on, so it has brought the tank and brought the weight down slightly. Will that help the ride or anything? I don't know. If it was an aircraft maybe, but I'm not sure if that'll do anything for the ride of the boat, but it will bring some of the weight down, a little bit lower center of gravity. So I'll turn you around and show you what I got. So these are my cheap pool noodles that I picked up from the dollar store. These really are going to be acting as nothing more than dams for the actual expanding foam. I bought, I think it was 4-pound weight expanding foam that I bought. I wanted something a little firmer than 2 pounds, so I bought the 4-pound stuff, and these are going to be basically acting as dams to give me a proper shape. Going to pour the foam inside of those, so I'm gonna run inside and kind of draw out what my plan is with this. Okay, my plan behind this is color code. You got the black is the tank, the green is the hold itself, the hole in the boat, and then the red is the rubber mats, and the blue I'll be drawing is going to be the pool noodle. So I've got my green square, that's the actual hole that the tank sits down in, and then I've got my rubber mats below. So my idea with the pool noodle is, like, here's a forward or aft view. I have a very small sliver on each side that the tank just barely fits in. Maybe it's maybe 1.5 inches, 2 inches on each side. And then forward and back, it's about the same. So I think what I'm wanting to do is, whether I do squares or U shapes, I'm not sure yet, but I'm either gonna stuff the pool noodle down in here. Let's just say we do like a U shape like this, like maybe 2. I'm not sure if I'll do 2 or 3. So then this is wedged between the wall and the tank itself. And when I pour foam down in here, let's say the green is the foam, and it expands, it's going to be encapsulated just within this. So it's not going to go underneath the tank and start clogging things, and it'll still leave a lot of areas for drainage and ventilation to get around and everything to ventilate. And then this will spill out over the top, and then I can trim whatever I need to trim. So the idea is to do like 2 or 3 of those on the side, and then on the actual bulkhead here, you have my arches for drainage right here. So putting the pool noodles in kind of just like this will keep me from having ended up blocking any of this off. So I'll drop that right down in there, and then fill it with foam, that expanding foam, and it will expand. So I think that will do just fine as holding the tank in there, and keeping it from sliding forward, back, side to side, and hopefully up and down is too. I really don't want to have to go anything across the tank and screw in to the stringers. I don't really think that's necessary. It took me 2 freaking days to get that tank out of there after pressure washing everything out of the side. So just the foam on the bottom was sticking that tank in there. So I think this amount of foam on the sides and in the front, I think that's going to be more than enough friction to hold that tank in, to keep it from bouncing up and down like in rough seas or anything. So I think that's going to work, and that's my plan of attack on it. So I'm going to get started on that today, and we'll see how it goes. All right, so we're back up in the boat now. I'm looking at the aft of the tank to do first, and I think kind of what I decided to do is notch out the noodles. It's going to be the easiest way to do it. So this noodle here will go in the back, but I've just kind of taken roughly the width and notched out 45 degrees, well, 90 degrees really, 45 from each side, but to give me a 45 when I fold this over. So I'm just gonna hit this with some contact adhesive, so then when I fold it up like that, I get a nice, pretty much joint. That is going to be easier than messing with trying to do the U's. What I've already found out, and it's kind of suspected with the U shape, is that unless it's really, really wedged in there, the top of the noodle, when it's just in a U shape, wants to flare out, and it doesn't give me as much control. So I'm just gonna go ahead and make rigid, somewhat square shapes and shove them down in there. That will also give me a little more contact area per noodle piece. All right, so I've got all my pool noodles cut and assembled. I did end up going back and just cutting them into 2 pieces. It just made a much better bend. I was getting more of a flared bend, and I don't want that. I want it to be 90 degrees. I am short. I'm gonna have to go to the store and get one more noodle. I'm short. Misjudged how much length I would need. Haven't we all done that? So I gotta go to the store and get one more noodle and make one more of these, and then I can start getting them wedged in and getting the tank centered and everything like that. I'm gonna try. I might actually take one of these and cut it down the middle, like in half, and use that as the front and push the tank forward slightly. Try to move it, the weight of the tank forward just a little bit, but I don't know if that'll be worth it or not. We'll see when the time comes how much room I have. I may have to actually do that in general, because looking at, by the time I get a full pool noodle in the back, I think I might only be able to fit half a pool noodle in the front, which would be fine. All right, I've got the back piece in there and then checked from the bilge to ensure that the archway is clear. What I'll probably do too before I pour foam, mostly just for that back section, is I'll crawl up here in the bilge and put some plastic down right there in the archway and in front of it as much as I can. So if any foam does happen to leak through there and expand, it's just stuck to the plastic, and I can kind of pull it out, and it's not going to be stuck to the bottom of the bilge. But unfortunately, the dollar store that I had to go to get my extra noodle, they only had these, which was a lot bigger diameter than the original ones. So the front here looks like just about half a diameter. So if I'm probably going to cut this just a little bit over halfway, and that way it gives me some compression to get a good seal. So I'm going to trim this one, and then sticking the ones in this 4 on the sides should be pretty easy. Just pushing this tank around to get it kind of centered in here, so I get good pressure and good seal on all these things. So another thought I had is to stuff a trash bag, like a thick black trash bag, down in there and pour the foam within the trash bag. But I really don't want to do that because I want the adhesion of the foam to the tank and the wall helping secure everything in there. If I put the trash bag in there, yeah, it'll take up the gap and keep it from shifting, but I think I'll have a lot more risk of the tank actually bouncing up and down if I do it within trash bags. So I'm gonna skip that idea. Plus those things will break down over time anyway, the trash bags will. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna get this orange one trimmed, get it shoved down in there, and get these other shoved down in there, and try to get this foam poured. All right, I've got my front piece cut. I think this would be about the right width. Just give me just enough compression to get a good seal in there, but it is getting to that time of day where I'm gonna have to I already have my hose pulled up in here. I'm gonna have to spray this tank down because it's so daggone hot. As soon as you touch it, it's burning you. It's just sitting out here in the sun, so I'm gonna have to spray this tank down before I can work on it anymore. All right, we've got our noodle dams, noodle compartments in. I got 2 on the sides and 1 in the back, 1 in the front. You can see how this goes in here, but then for the actual drainage, it doesn't go down far enough, so once I pour the foam in here, it'll contain all the foam into that shape. Same with along the sides here. From here to here is a compartment, and then in the middle here is all open for ventilation and drainage, and then another compartment here to here. Then the back end corner will be open, and then I have the same thing going along the other sides there. So I think that'll give me a good amount of adhesion and certainly keep the tank from shifting front to back, especially with a 4-pound foam instead of the 2-pound foam. It'll be nice and hard, and the foam that I got is poly compatible, so I can, if I feel like it, once this foam is done, I can trim off the foam to like a tapering shape, and I can actually put some glass or gel coat over top of it just to kind of keep any moisture from going down in there, but I don't know whether I'm going to do that or not. So I'm about to get this foam poured, and then the next step will be looking into tapering out the floor here so I can get that piece of subfloor glassed back in. But honestly, I'm thinking about getting some 1/8" stainless flat bar and bolting it in, and then putting the subfloor on that and just holding it in with a few rivets. So that way, should you ever need to service this, you don't have to cut the floor out and do all that stuff and re-glass it back in. It's not even seen. This is within the console. So, and I think cosmetically, just having a small seam riveted in won't look any worse than what I'm gonna do tapering this out and glassing it back in, because I don't think I'd even bother gel coating it back in. So I think I might just go ahead and make this a semi-removable subfloor to get to all this, because bolting in some stainless flat bar and then riveting the subfloor on top of it, that's going to be just as strong, if not stronger, than trying to glass this back in just from the top side. So it's going to have batteries bouncing on it and things like that. So I think that's how I'm going to go about it. I'm so tired of doing glass work too, rather than grinding gel coat and grinding glass in here again. I think that's going to be the way to go. So I've never used a 2-part expanding foam before, so this will be a new thing for me. What I think I'm going to try to do is just do one cavity at a time, and that way I can gauge based on how overfilled or underfilled the first one was, how much I'm going to need to get kind of just the right expansion and fill for the other compartments that I got to fill. So I'll probably do one of the side ones first, the most exposed one, not the one that has the fuel fill hose and the electronics going over it, one of the rear ones, so that way if it's too much, I don't have any really stuff in the way to cut it back and trim it out of there. And then I'll gauge based on that how much overfill or underfill I had to gauge how much more or less I'm gonna need for the other compartments. So since this kit says it expands to 2 cubic feet for this particular thing, but then you have the other part. This is a 1/2 gallon and the other thing is a 1/2 gallon. So really it's a full gallon. I'm assuming that's what they mean, is that this kit, even though this is a 1/2 pound of actual foam, the other part is the activator, and it's a 1-to-1 ratio. So if that means 2 cubic feet out of a gallon, then I have roughly 21 ounces available for each of the 6 compartments. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix up 16 ounces and pour it in and kind of go from there and see what I get based on the 16 ounces. All right, so we've got our foam poured. That was the first one I did. It was a little short, so I had to add a little bit to it. It looked kind of shitty. It had like areas where water would have been able to sit. The other ones, like this one here, since the boat is at an angle, the boat is bow up right now, so the foam kind of sought its own level and then came up kind of at that level, which I think is good, because what I'm going to end up doing is, now that this foam is poured, these dams may basically able to just pull them right out. So any moisture that gets on top of this foam is able to just run back this way, right off down underneath the tank and run out. So I'm not super concerned about it actually coming all the way up to prevent moisture from going down in there. Once it goes down, it'll be able to run right off the back of it. It's not going to be stuck because the tank's not fully foamed in. It's got somewhere to go and drain down. So most of them are like that. They have a little taper. This one was a little bit higher, but it does have some taper. But again, I'm going to just go ahead and pull all these vertical dams out. And that was a nice thing about me making them. End up making them 3 pieces instead of just folding them. They come out pretty good. So I am just going to remove these dams. It's going to give it a little extra ventilation in areas to drain to, and I'm gonna have to work on getting that one out all the way at the bottom, but you get the point. The front overfill, but I think it's still low enough. The front was the smallest volume because it had those larger noodles. Use those larger noodles, so it was a little bit smaller volume than the back, but the back also did fill out nice and full. I definitely didn't want anything going down in the back, so the front and the back up like that is fine. The sides I think are less of an issue, but either way, any moisture gets on top of this tank is going to have a lot of places to go and a good amount of ventilation as well, compared to what it had before, which was basically zero. It was basically foamed into a coffin. So got a couple spots that were dripped on here. This foam is rock hard, but I don't really think it's going to be an issue. It's not visible or anything like that. It was a little difficult to pour into here, because if you look, you can't. It's up underneath this lip, so it was a little difficult. The last bit I had to just dump on the tank and then kind of scrape it in there. I don't know if I'll scrape that off or not. I may not bother, but I'm gonna go around right now and pull these dams, and then probably gonna run to the steel store today. I got to go register my C-Pro and trailer because I'm going to take that out tomorrow, and run to the steel shop and get some stainless steel flat bar, and figure out how I'm going to incorporate that and install that stuff, so I don't have to do any more glass work, and I have a partially removable subfloor.